So, Kentucky Fried Chicken's famous payoff line, that's finger licking good, is no more, at least while the coronavirus pandemic is with us. Health authorities are encouraging people to stop touching their faces in order to prevent infecting themselves with the virus. The fast food chain says the payoff line, as it's used, has been around for about 60 years or so and doesn't fit with the current environment and will bring it back when the time is right. So, is this a bold social awareness campaign, and does it take away from its brand equity? Well, let's have you unpack this issue and bring in Thebe Ikalafeng, who's founder of Brand Leadership, as well as Peter Little, who's Executive Creative Director at Ogilvy. Thanks very much to the both of you gentlemen, and welcome to the AM Report. Peter, let me start with you. Quite an interesting move at the very least, isn't it? It does come at the back, though, of Nando's taking a swipe at KFC. So how do we read this? Like, is this just a reactionary move or an appropriate reading of the status quo?
Thanks, Ayanda. Yeah, look, globally, they've taken the move to remove the payoff line at the moment. I think so. Yes, locally we do know of Nando's and the commentary around that, but I think this is more of a global move and not just a local one.
Thebe, at the very least, we're hoping there'll be a time where COVID-19 isn't around anymore, but there's no telling when that time will come. Given that, there's also no telling of when this tagline might be reversed back to what it used to be. So did KFC perhaps take this symbolic gesture a bit too far, perhaps?
I don't think it's a symbolic gesture. I think it's the right thing to do. What we've learned now during the COVID era, actually any pandemic or any crisis and all those, is that brands need to do a couple of things. The first thing they need to do, they need to show empathy. They need to show empathy. The second thing they need to do is they need to adapt their communication. And most importantly, they need to build trust. And what have we learned during the COVID? What have we been asked to do? We've been asked to keep our distances. That's why some brands have adapted to digital and to delivery. We've been asked to wash our hands and to keep our hands clean. So the message by KFC to say finger licking good is the health hazard is a good decision. So we've been asked to stay home to stay safe. So those decisions are very important because they show that the brand does show empathy. They show that the brand knows where the customer is, and that's how you build a brand into the long term. Because all great brands have to adapt and have to stay in pace, if not lead, where the customers are going to be.
All right, so Peter, I understand you're actually part of the process that actually, saw to this happening. What does that process entail? I imagine at first glance, the first person to make that suggestion appears ridiculous, but I guess as more people think about it, it does sound a bit feasible. Take us through that process and how, the decision was finally taken.
Yes, yeah. So as you said, it's a global campaign. So a couple of agencies from across the world engaged in Some ideas, and through that process, a decision was made, obviously, to drop the payoff line. I think it is an unfortunate payoff line at the in the current conditions, but I think it was the right thing to do. And gives KFC their view on COVID.
Right. Thebe, we went from finger licking good to it's good. Is that good enough?
The most important thing that's good enough is that you are in step and you are being seen to be responsible as a brand, because the most important thing that any brand can show is that they are a responsible business partner, responsible not just from a compliance, but responsible as well in terms of caring for their customers and where their customers are going to be. I think there's another related example. If you look at some of the campaigns that have been carried by other brands, like McDonald's, for example. One of the temporary campaigns is removing separating the two golden arches. You look at VWV moving the V and the W. You look at Kappa separating the two people. It doesn't do much damage. It doesn't do any damage to the brand. All it does is it's a symbolic gesture to show that the brand understands where the world is.
Yeah, and that's the exact direction I was going to head, Peter. Often when a tagline has been around for as long as about 64 years, it almost becomes difficult to think of the tagline outside of the brand itself. How much of a bearing does something like a tagline have on a brand, especially when it's so closely aligned to the product itself in KFC's case?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, as you said, it's 64 years, so it's become synonymous with KFC, and I think that's why the decision taken was a bold one and a brave one. But part of that is it gives KFC and all the advertising community around KFC to look at possible other avenues. So there might be an opportunity to temporarily change the payoff line.
What's also important, though, Thebe, of course, is whilst we make these changes, we ensure that there is enough communicated about why the changes are happening. For people who aren't necessarily able to follow through, this might just seem like an arbitrary reduction of what used to be a longer tagline, from it's finger-licking good to it's good. Take us through the responsibility to make sure that the message is carried through, to obviously maximize things like impact and effect.
Well, as you said correctly, that the most important decision that any brand can make is to answer the question why. So, and the question why is why do we exist? And I want to link to the payoff line discussion what you said earlier with Peter. Is that what the tagline does? It really sums up the essence of the why you must be with that particular brand. So the most important thing is now that you've spent all that money, 60 years, explaining your why, if you adapt the why, you must explain. In 1983, when Coca-Cola, 83, when Coca-Cola changed Coke to the new Coke, they lost their market share to Pepsi and Coke because Coke did not first understand the why customers went to Coca-Cola, and they didn't explain the why. To them, it was just a gesture. So this cannot be a gesture or a trend or something like that. It has to be seen as a genuine effort in terms of for the brand to be able to respond to the challenges that we're facing. And COVID is a serious challenge and a crisis for the world, not just for South Africa. It is not a trend that KFC, all the other brands are doing. It is the most responsible thing. So what they need to do is the advertising or the communication job is to go back to the customers who have been part of their custom for so many years to explain to them why are we changing.
So, Peter, COVID-19 is the challenge of the day, but certainly not the challenge that humanity will face in all its existence. The real possibility here is that a precedent has been set, and there's almost an expectation that KFC will respond with as much vigor to whatever challenges are to come. Has that precedent, if you like, put KFC in quite an awkward position where, the bar has been raised and there are going to be expectations that it meets that bar for the rest of its existence, really?
Yes, but I don't think that's a bad thing, especially with a brand like KFC. That they are brave and they are forward-thinking. So I think the opportunity to raise the bar is always a good one. It encourages a better communication with its customers and the engagement with its customers at a higher level. So I think there's a challenge and a bar, as you said, has been set, but a fantastic one for us to move forward with.
And Thebe, at the risk of putting you on the spot, let me ask you what you make of the new tagline, which I've already alluded to, which is simply, it's good. Was that a lack of creativity on Peter and his team's side?
Well, it's not. Well, I think at least it is closer to what it was before, but it's just adapted it to say that the one part that is not good about the previous tagline is the leaking part, but the chicken remains good. KFC is good. It's bad for you, but it's very good.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Sadly, out of time. Certainly appreciate your time and your insights, guys. Really an interesting move from KFC changing their tagline there. That is Thebe Ikalafeng, who's founder of Brand Leadership, as well as Peter Little, who's Executive Creative Director at Ogilvy. So thanks very much indeed to the both of you.